Yeah, man, y'all know what time it is, Ross, with that sauce, man.
You already know this your boy Parlay, man, right here on the west side in the motherfucking slum in the SWAT, man. Raw Media, man, you know what it is, man. Right here, tap in.
You dig. Man, we gonna get into it, man. This something for y'all niggas, man. It's the truth about Thanksgiving, how the natives got over here to this land and all that, you dig what I'm saying, and where everything come from.
Shalom, and welcome to another edition of The Truth Shall Make You Free. I'm your host, Elder Nathaniel, on my right,
Deacon Asaph.
Today's topic, we're going to go over the truth of Thanksgiving. All right, but before we do so, let's open up with John chapter 8 and verse 32.
John chapter 8, verse 32. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
So black man, black woman, Latin woman, the truth is that you're the Israelites. You were made slaves in America for breaking God's commandments. If you want deliverance, you must repent as the Israelites and keep the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments. So let's open up with 2nd Esdras in the Apocrypha.
2nd Esdras chapter 13, verse 40. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanassar the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen, and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
That place is America, what's called America today, right?
That they might keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passage of the river. For the Most High then showed them signs for them, and held still the floods, till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go.
Meaning from Assyria throughout the area where they traveled through the Euphrates was a great way to go. Go ahead.
Namely of a year and a half.
So it took them a year and a half to get over here.
And the same region is called Arsareth.
So this region that we call America was called Arsareth at one time, okay? So, proving to you that what? The 10 tribes that came over here that you call Indians, the Bible calls the 10 tribes of Israel. From there, let's go to Hosea.
Hosea chapter 11, verse 10. They shall walk after the Lord.
So the prophecy says that the Israelites shall walk after the Lord.
He shall roar like a lion.
He shall roar like a lion. Go ahead.
When he shall roar, then the children shall tremble from the west.
The Israelites shall tremble what?
From the west.
From the west. What does it mean? We shall tremble from the west. The Western Hemisphere, okay? That's what this side of the world is called, the Western Hemisphere, because over on Jerusalem's side, it's called the Eastern Hemisphere. Was that it?
There's more.
Go ahead.
They shall tremble as a bird out of Egypt.
Because we're going to be delivered from this captivity called spiritually called Egypt, right?
And as a dove out of the land of Assyria.
Mm-hmm.
And I will place them in their houses, saith the Lord.
The Most High is going to bring us back to our homeland. From there, let's go to Deuteronomy 33. Because some of you don't understand that just as the prophet Esdras prophesied the 10 tribes will come on this side of the world, the prophet Moses prophesied the same thing. Deuteronomy 33, let's read verse 1 first.
Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 1. And this is the blessing wherewith Moses, the man of God, blessed the children of Israel before his death.
So now from there, jump down to verse 20.
Verse 20.
All I want is 20.
And Gad, he said.
And Gad, he said. Who is Gad? Gad are the ones you call today the North American Indians. Read it again.
And Gad, he said, blessed be he that enlargeth Gad.
Blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. Go ahead.
He dwelleth as a lion.
Meaning that the tribe of Gad would dwell like a predator. Okay? That's what it means was as a lion. They were predators upon the land here. Go ahead.
And teareth the arm with the crown of the head.
What does it mean? This is how we know that the North American Indians are the tribe of Gad. Read that again.
And of Gad, he said, blessed he that enlargeth Gad.
Mm-hmm.
He dwelleth as a lion, and teareth the arm with the crown of the head.
What does that part mean? He teareth the arm with the crown of the head. The tribe of Gad, the North American Indians, have something called a blood brother ritual, where they would they would go to the leader of the tribe and they would cut their arm and mingle their blood together. That was a custom that they had. Read that part again.
And teareth the arm with the crown of the head.
And why does it specify the crown of the head? Huh? Because the tribe of Gad had an unusual crown that was different than all the kings and leaders of the world. What was their crown? Okay, their crown was made up of eagle's feathers. Okay, was that it? All I want is that verse 20.
That's it.
Go to 1 Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 8.
And of the Gadites, there separated themselves unto David into the whole to the wilderness men of might and men of war, fit for the battle.
Fit for the battle.
That could handle shield and buckler.
That could handle shield and buckler.
Whose faces were like the faces of lions.
Whose faces were like the faces of lions. Remember what Moses said about them, okay? Moses said that they would dwell upon the land like lions. When it says here, whose faces were like the faces of lions, what did the North American Indians used to do regarding their faces? Before they went to battle, they would put on what they call war paint, okay? And their faces looked fierce, okay? Was that it?
And were as swift as the rolls upon the mountain.
Then it says here that the tribe of Gad, which are the North American Indians, were as swift as deers upon what?
Upon the mountains.
Upon the mountains. This tribe was bad. That's why when you examine the 12 tribes, they were the last tribe to be conquered and overcome. And the white man could not do it alone. They had to get the tribe of Judah, the American black you call today. They had to get the tribe of Benjamin, the West Indian black, and the tribe of Issachar, the so-called Mexican, to help them overcome the tribe of Gad. Read that part again. Verse 8.
And the buckler, whose faces were like the faces of lions, and were as swift as rolls upon the mountain.
Because the white man said in history, they couldn't overcome them. They couldn't catch them. They needed help. Read.
And of the Gadites, they separated themselves unto David into the whole to the wilderness, men of might and men of war, fit for the battle, that could handle shield and buckler, whose faces were like the faces of lions, and were as swift as the rolls upon the mountain.
Because when you read the history, they said these guys are too swift for us. That's why they had to get the Buffalo Soldiers, okay, to help overcome them. That's why they get the so-called Mexicans to help overcome them, okay? From there, let's go back to Deuteronomy 33 and verse 20 again. This is for all you non-believers out there. This is how we know the Genesis and Deuteronomy proves who the tribes are. Whether you accept it or not, it doesn't mean anything because the word of God shall flourish. Read.
Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 20. And of Gad he said, blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. He dwelleth as a lion.
He dwelleth as a lion, meaning a predator. He was a powerful warrior, this tribe, right?
And teareth the arm with the crown of the head.
The blood brother covenant that they would make, okay? With the crown of the head, they had an unusual crown made up of feathers, right?
That's it.
Read to 21.
21. And he provided the first part for himself.
Now, listen good to this part. Read it again.
And he provided the first part for himself.
When the tribes came on this side of the world, it says the tribe of Gad provided the first part for himself. What does it mean, the first part? The best part. That's why North America, what you call today, is the headquarters of the so-called white man. They realized that of all the lands from North, Central, South America, even Canada, they said North America, that area there, that region is the best. Read it again, verse 21.
And he provided the first part for himself, because therein a portion of the lawgiver was he seated.
So the tribe of Gad was seated as a lawgiver. Why? Because the tribe of Levi was cast out, as we proved to you in the book of Chronicles, chapter 11, on other shows. Go ahead.
And he came with the heads of the people.
Notice, and he came with the heads of the people. Who were the heads of the people? Ephraim and Manasseh during this time. Go ahead.
He executed the justice of the Lord.
The tribe of Gad executed the justice of the Lord.
And his judgments with Israel.
And his judgments with Israel. From there, let's go to Psalms 49 now. Psalms 49. So what happened? When the so-called white man came on this side of the world with the pilgrims, because every year you celebrate what's called Thanksgiving. And you like to talk about the first Thanksgiving, about how the so-called Indians and the so-called pilgrims, the white man, they were so peaceable and loving with Squanto, the Indian who could speak both English and the Indian dialect, which was Hebrew, by the way, and they could converse. And they made peace, and they had turkey and squash and cranberry sauce. That's all bull crap, malarkey, and lies. Listen good to what I'm telling you. Psalms 49 and 11.
Psalms 49, verse 11.
Mhm.
Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever.
Who is David talking about when he says their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever? The white man. They believe that they shall explore and seek out new frontiers to dwell with and go where no man has gone before. That's why they create movies like Star Trek and all this Star Wars and all that.
Right.
What? Read it again.
Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever,
Watch this.
and their dwelling places to all generations.
Here it comes.
They call their lands after their own names.
They call their lands after their own names. They call their lands after their own names. When the so-called white man came on this side, remember, it was not Columbus that came to the mainland, North America. Who was it? Who discovered it? Amerigo Vespucci, an Italian navigator. And after Amerigo Vespucci derived the name America. Okay, some books have it translated Americus Vespucci. Okay, so he came to this side in 1493. Okay, and his name was the name put on this continent over here. So from there, Deuteronomy 28 now. So now we've proven to you what has happened, okay? How did this land become known as America? Psalm 49:11. God proved it and showed you it. Deuteronomy 28, verse 15. Listen good.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15.
Mhm.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Jump down to verse 30. Listen good.
Verse 30. Thou shalt betroth a wife,
Thou shalt betroth a wife.
and another man shall lie with her.
Did that happen with the so-called American Indians, the Indians on this side of the world? Huh? Did they have wives and another man raped them? Yes! When a white man came and conquered, they were raping the so-called Native American women. Read.
Thou shalt build an house.
Did they have houses on this side? Yes. And when they were on a run, they set up what's called teepees or tabernacles or booths. Okay? Read it again.
Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein.
Read.
Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof.
Did the so-called American Indians have vineyards on this side of the world? Yes. Because some of you unlearned Negroes say, oh, they don't fit the prophecy. Negro, be quiet. Let's go to this book entitled The Way of the Warrior. Show them what the crown of the head looked like. There's an example of it. Here's another crown, okay, with the crown of the head. They had an unusual crown, okay, more unusual than any of the kings and leaders of earth.
Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes.
Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes. Let's go to that Time Life book, The Great Chiefs. Show them thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes. What do you see? The so-called white man and thousands of oxen and buffalo slain before the eyes of the Native American Indians. So, thank you. So you Negroes at home that talk about, oh, they don't fit the curses. You brothers don't know, you don't know history. You don't know what you're talking about. You're filled with hatred. That's it. What verse you at?
Verse 31.
Come on.
Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee.
Watch this. Come on.
Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies.
Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies. Read.
And thou shalt have none to rescue them.
None to rescue them.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. Were the sons and daughters of the American Indians given into the hands of the white man? The answer is yes. Now, what I'm going to do, I want you to go to Google Map. It's called MAAP, MAAP, and they're going to show you that many thousands of American Indians were sold as slaves on Wall Street. Okay, I'm going to show you a clip from Goodbye Uncle Tom, where they show you American Indians beside the Negroes sold into slavery.
Un indiano non sarà mai uno schiavo. Nessuno è mai riuscito a farlo riprodurre in cattività. Non mangia, non parla, non dorme, non fa all'amore.
Google Thanksgiving genocide. Thanksgiving genocide or genocide Thanksgiving. They give you a list of the actual truth behind Thanksgiving. Now, I printed this up, so we're going to read. It's by a book by Glenn Ford that he had printed November 27th, 2006. Now, the highlighted parts is all we want. Just read it for them.
Okay. White America embraced Thanksgiving because a majority of population glories in the fruits, if not the unpleasant details of genocide and slavery and fields.
So white America, they like that story of Squanto and the Indians and the white pilgrims coming together. They like that so that you don't have to face the reality of the genocide your people caused. Was that it?
On the whole, good about their heritage.
To feel good about their heritage. Jump down here.
The Thanksgiving story is an absolution of the pilgrims, whose brutal quest for absolute power in the new world is made to seem both religiously motivated.
They make it seem religiously motivated.
And eminently human.
And eminently human. I'm going to show you that's a bold-faced lie. When they got over here, they say they came on Jamestown, Massachusetts in 1621 and all that. When was the Boston Tea Party and all that? Way after that. Way after that. Okay, go ahead.
Most importantly, the pilgrims are depicted as victims of harsh weather and their own naive yet wholesome visions of a new beginning.
The wholesome and naive pilgrims. Yes. Come on, was that it?
That's it.
Now turn the next page. We ain't fin. I'm getting the key points. You can Google this yourself. Now there's books on it now, okay?
The following year, Captain Hunt, an English slave trader, arrived at Patuxent. It was common practice for explorers to capture Indians, take them to Europe, and to sell them into slavery for 220 shillings apiece.
Wait, read that bottom part. Capture Indians and what?
It was common practice for explorers to capture Indians, take them to Europe, and sell them into slavery for 220 shillings apiece.
Take them to Europe and sell them into slavery. Do you Negroes know history? Oh, they don't fit. How'd they get to Europe on slave ships? That's what we showing you Negroes, filled with hatred, okay? Hold that. Get back to Deuteronomy 28:32 again.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand.
Did the so-called American Indians have power and might to get their sons and daughters back from Europe? No. We're going to read more. Now, hold on. Let's go back to this now. I ain't finished because y'all like to talk about Squanto. You sit in your school systems and talk about Squanto. Ever ask yourself, how did Squanto, the so-called Indian, how is he able to translate for the so-called white man and the so-called Indians? Because Squanto, when you read the history, was a slave in Europe. And he found his way back, hiding on another ship to get back to his people. That's the history the so-called white people won't tell you. Okay? Where you at?
Another common practice among European explorers was to give smallpox blankets to the Indians.
Smallpox blankets. Disease blankets to the Indians. Come on.
Since smallpox was unknown on this continent prior to the arrival of the Europeans, Native Americans did not have any natural immunity to the disease, so smallpox would effectively wipe out entire villages with very little effort required by the Europeans.
Now flip the page. We go. I'm just getting to the nitty gritty of the thing. Y'all can read the rest on your own. Turn that. Come on. Right there, here and here.
Most historians believe about 700 Pequots were slaughtered at Mystic
River. The 700 Pequot Indians. Go ahead.
Many prisoners were executed, and surviving women and children sold into slavery in the West Indies.
They were sold into slavery in the West Indies. How did they get to the West Indies on slave ships? Jump down.
The Massachusetts government offered 20 shillings bounty for every Indian scalped and 40 shillings for every prisoner who could be sold into slavery. Soldiers were allowed to enslave any Indian woman or child under 14 they could capture.
Read.
And
praying.
the praying Indians who had converted to Christianity.
Now, remember, the praying Indians who had converted to Christianity, come on,
The praying Indians who had converted to Christianity and fought on the side of the European
and
troops
fought on the side of the European troops like the Mexicans did, the tribe of Issachar did,
were accused of shooting into the treetops during battles with hostiles. They were enslaved or killed. Other peaceful Indians, Dartmouth and Dover, were invited to negotiate or seek refuge at trading posts and were sold onto slave ships.
sold on to what?
Sold onto slave ships.
Get Deuteronomy 28:68 for the unlearned Negro at home who like to say they don't fit the curses. They didn't go into slavery on slave ships.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
The word Egypt there means what? Bondage. Were they sent on slave ships to bondage in Europe and the West Indies? Yes. Read a book, Negro. The history tells you thousands of Americans, thousands upon thousands were made slaves in Spain, Rome, Europe, and the West Indies. Come on.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
Was anybody able to save the so-called American Indians? No. See, they don't teach us that in school. Okay, why? Because it's the good old divide and conquer. Don't teach the Negroes and don't teach the Indians that they were sold on slave ships. Don't teach them. Just teach that the so-called blacks were made slaves and sold on slave ships. That caused the divisions in our people. Now, we're on page 8 now. Read that highlighted part.
Page 8. The country they claimed as their own was fathered by genocide.
Meaning the white man claimed this as their own. It was fathered by what?
By genocide and mothered by slavery.
Fathered by genocide and mothered by slavery. Come on. Next page. That section right there.
Defenders of the holiday will claim that the political...
Wait. Defenders of the holiday. He's talking about Thanksgiving. You know, the holiday that you blacks like to say, oh, this is just a day
for us to come together as one that's family.
Right. Foolish. Read that again.
Defenders of the holiday will claim that the politically corrected children's version promotes brotherhood. But that is an impossibility, a bold excuse to prolong the worship of colonial forefathers and to erase the crimes they committed.
See?
Those bastards burned the Pequot woman and children and ushered in the multinational business of slavery. These are facts. The myth is an insidious diversion and worse.
You see what the author Glenn Ford wrote? He says, you that defend the holiday, who's he talking about? Just excuse the so-called white man because they're wicked as hell. Let's talk about you Negroes for a second. You are the defenders of the holiday. You ask a dumb Negro why they celebrate Thanksgiving? Oh, it promotes brotherhood and love for mankind, you dumb fools. That's what you are. Excuse me for calling you that. But when we bring the truth to you, you're the first ones to come up against the truth. Was that it? Flip the page? I think that was it.
Yeah, that's it.
Flip. That was it. Good. Now, we're going to get right back to the Bible now. I haven't forgotten the Bible because the Bible is the foundation, okay? I just had to read that history for you so that you can get the understanding. Now, from there, bear with me a second. Let me find, I lost my page. Let's go from there. Let's go to Hosea chapter 4. No, get me Deuteronomy 28:36. Deuteronomy 28, verse 36. That's what I want. Okay.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 36. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. And there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone.
Did that happen to the so-called American Indians? Yes, because when they were made slaves over throughout Europe, they were forced to worship the white image of Jesus Christ. They were forced to do that. From there, let's go to Hosea 4:12. Okay. Hosea chapter 4 and verse 12.
Hosea chapter 4, verse 12. My people ask counsel at their stocks, and their stock declare it unto them. For the spirit of whoredoms hath caused them to err, and they have gone a whoring from under their God. Keep reading.
No, that was it. So our people have gone a whoring from under the Most High God. We've worshipped wood and stone. From there, let's go to Psalms 55, okay? Psalms, the 55 chapter. Let's get more into the celebrating of Thanksgiving. Psalms 55, we want verse 20 and 21.
Psalms 55, verse 20. He hath put forth his hand against such as be at peace with him.
He hath put forth his hands with such as be at peace with him. When the pilgrims came, remember, I want you to think about this. The pilgrims, they say, came around 1620, 1621, correct? But America, the mainland, was discovered around when? 1493. So within all that time, what was going on? You had white men traveling back and forth, okay? They decided they were going to make this an extension of Europe, okay? So they were bringing shiploads on the Mayflower, on the Nina, the Pinta, the Sentinel, all those little ship names, the good ship, Jesus, and all of them foolish names y'all had out there. Read it again.
He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him.
Right. So when the so-called Indians were at peace with you at first, but they realized that you was the great Satan that the Bible speaks of. Watch this.
He hath broken his covenant.
He has broken his covenant because you white people, you set up many fake peace treaties with them. And let's see what happened.
The words of his mouth were smoother than butter.
Yeah, we're going to work together to do this, do that.
But war was in his
The
heart.
Bible says, but war was in your heart. You broke the covenant. Read that part again from the covenant part.
The words of his mouth were smoother than butter.
Before that.
He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant.
He has broken his covenant. He has broken his treaty. Go ahead.
The words of his mouth were smoother than butter.
Because the white man speaks good in his letters, okay? He writes real well. Go ahead.
But war was in his heart.
But behind all the writings, behind all his words, is war. That's what God says. You believe the Bible if you want, okay? You better believe the Bible for you disbelievers out there. From there, let's go to Habakkuk. Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 6, okay?
Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 6. For lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation.
Now, remember the Bible is written twofold because these Chaldeans at one time was making reference to the ancient Babylonians. But this time, it ain't talking about the ancient Babylonians. It's talking about the white man. And as we read down, you're going to see what it's saying. Come on.
For lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation.
That bitter and hasty nation, because the white man is just as the ancient Babylonians were. That's why in Psalms, it calls the white man the daughter of Babylon. Read.
Which shall march through the breadth of the land.
Did they march through the breadth of the land? Did they march from South America up through North America, through Canada? Yes, they did. With all their armies, their military. Yes, read.
To possess the dwelling places that are not theirs.
What was their purpose?
To possess the dwelling places that are not theirs.
So for you unbelievers, what is that talking about? Who marched through the land to possess the dwelling places that's not there? That's white. Your great white hunk. The so-called white man, that's who this is talking about. Read.
They are terrible and dreadful.
They are terrible and dreadful. That's why in Deuteronomy 28, Moses said, the Lord will raise up a nation against you which would not show favor to young or old. Read.
They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity shall proceed of themselves.
Come on.
Their horses also are swifter than leopards.
Did they come with horses? Large, powerful horses. Yeah, they did. Come on.
And are more fierce than the evening wolf.
And are more fierce than the evening wolves. Read. We're just going down to 11.
Okay.
Right.
And their horsemen shall spread themselves, and their horsemen shall come from the far.
And their horsemen shall come from the far, meaning Europe. Right?
They shall fly as an eagle that hasteth to eat.
Why does it say they shall fly as the eagle? Huh? What was the symbol of Spain and France and America today? The eagle, the eagle, the eagle. Come on.
They shall come all for violence.
Why did they come?
They shall come all for violence.
No, the pilgrims came for peace.
They shall come all for violence.
So your Thanksgiving is a lie, thus saith the Lord. Your Thanksgiving Day is based on genocide, evil, and bloodshed. Read.
They shall come all for violence. Their face shall up as the east wind.
Their face shall sup up as the east wind. What does that mean? Where did they come from? Europe. Where's that? The east. Go ahead.
Their face shall sup up as the east wind, and they shall gather the captivity as sand.
They shall gather the captivity. Who's the captivity? The 12 tribes of Israel. They gathered us up as the sand. What verse you at?
10.
Come on.
And they shall scoff at the kings. And
They
the
shall
princes.
scoff. Did they scoff at the kings and the princes that were set up by the 10 tribes? Yes, they did. The white man scoffed at their kings. Read.
And they shall scoff at the kings, and the princes shall be scorned unto them. They shall deride every stronghold, for they shall heap dust and take it.
What does it mean they shall heap dust and take it? Meaning confusion. How did they bring forth confusion? With their religions. Their Jesuit priests came forth first. What does the word Jesuit mean? It means crafty ones, okay? Because they came to the so-called Indians talking that religious garbage about love for brotherhood and peace for all mankind. And what did they do? Slaughter them. Say, here, we're giving you peace. Here's blankets to keep warm. Filled with disease. Filled with smallpox. What verse you at?
11.
Come on.
Then shall his mind change,
Then shall his mind change, meaning the mind of the so-called white man.
and he shall pass over and offend.
And he shall pass over and offend. Why? How did his mind change? Because after a while, he stopped with all the bloodshed once he gathered the captivity as the sand. His mind changed and he said, let's bring forth peace. Let's unite all races as one under us. And they call it today what? Democracy. Was that it?
Then shall his mind change, and he shall pass over and offend, imputing this his power unto his God.
This imputing power unto his God. Wait a minute. That struck a nerve there. Bear with me a second. I thought I saw something again. Now that part where it said they, what was the bottom part of that verse in 11? I think it was.
Imputing this his power unto his God.
Watch this. Read that.
The English settlers, their ostensibly religious venture backed by a trading company, were glad to discover that they had landed in a virtual cemetery in 1620. Corn still sprouted in the abandoned fields of Wampanoag, but only a remnant of local population remained around the fabled rock. In a letter to
Talking
England,
about Plymouth Rock. Go ahead.
in a letter to England, Massachusetts Bay Colony founder John Winthrop wrote, "But for those the natives in these parts, God has so pursued them
See, they're saying God has pursued the so-called Indians. Go ahead.
as for 300 miles
For 300 miles.
space, and the greatest part of them are swept away by smallpox, which continues among them. So as God has thereby cleared our title to this place, those who remain in these parts, being in all not 50, have put themselves under our protection."
See, they imputed their power to their God, the white image of Jesus. Okay, from there, let's go to Genesis 49, verse 1 and 2. Okay, Genesis 49, verse 1 and 2. A lot of you always write us, how do you know the Native American Indians are the tribe of Gad? It's told you here. Joseph prophesied it. Come on.
Genesis chapter 49, verse 1. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, "Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days."
So I'm sorry, Jacob. I said Joseph, but Jacob. Go ahead.
"Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father."
What verse was that? 2?
That was 2.
Jump down to verse 19.
Verse 19. "Gad, a troop shall overcome him."
See, he says in the spirit that Gad, a troop shall overcome him. Who was the troop that overcame the tribe of Gad? The troop is called the United States Cavalry, led by Andrew Jackson. Okay, they made funny movies about it called F Troop. Y'all never saw those movies, F Troop, where the F Troop would fight against American Indians and overcome them. Read it again.
"Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last."
So you got all these clues about who the American Indians are. We read in Deuteronomy where Moses said what? That they would cut the arm with the crown of the head. They would take the first part of the land for themselves. David said they would be warriors. Their faces would be like lions. Okay,
And their crown.
and with the crown of the head. Here it says what? That they would be overcome by a troop. Okay, all these clues are in the Bible for you to read and understand. From there, go to Isaiah 65. So we just read, Jacob said a troop will overcome you, Gad. Meaning what? In the future, in the last days, they would be overcome by a troop. Isaiah chapter 65 and verse 11.
Isaiah 65, verse 11. "But ye are they that forsake the Lord,
but ye are they. Listen good, black man, black woman. But ye are they that forsake the Lord.
that forget my holy mountain,
The Israelites forget the holy mountain of God,
that prepare a table for that truth.
that prepare a table for that truth. What is that talking about? Thanksgiving, that prepare a table for that truth. Because just like many of you so-called Native American Indians who are destroyed and brainwashed, you prepare a table for those that overcame you. You so-called blacks do the same thing, and you call it Thanksgiving Day. Read it again.
But ye are they that forsake the Lord, that forget my holy mountain, that prepare a table for that truth.
So do our people prepare a table for the truth that overcame us? Yes. We prepare a table. You call it Thanksgiving, the last Thursday of every November, right?
Right.
From there, let's go to,
Well, there's more.
okay.
And that furnish the drink offering unto that number.
And it furnish a drink offering unto that number. Thank you. I'm glad you read that part. So now, you ever wonder why the Thanksgiving meal is the turkey, the stuffing, the cranberry sauce, the apple cider? You ever wonder about those things? Listen, because they history tells you that the first time they sat down, those foods was not there to be eaten. So where'd it come from? Think about it. Everything the so-called white man does has a metaphoric meaning behind it. What did the turkey represent? The body, the overcoming of the tribe of Gad. That represents their body. What did the cranberry sauce represent? The spilling of their blood, okay? What did the stuffing represent? Because they did many atrocities to our people. Many unspeakable atrocities. They would cut off the breasts of the Indian women and play baseball with them, throwing them around, okay? They would cut off their heads and carry them to get money, but they realized that was too much, so they cut off their scalps. And a lot of you unlearned Negroes say, oh, the Indians started scalping people. No, they did that when the white man started doing that to them. Read a book, please. Get a clue, okay, you brainwashed Negroes. From there, let's go to Hosea. Chapter 7, verse 8 and 9. Okay, and don't think because I'm exalting my voice, I'm filled with hatred. No, it's zeal, it's passion and love for my people, for the word of the Most High. That's what it is. Don't mistake it. Hosea 7, verse 8 and 9.
Hosea chapter 7, verse 8. Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people.
Now, why is it specifying Ephraim here? Because Ephraim was the head tribe of the 10 tribes that came on this side of the world. Some of you unlearned blacks go, why they got straight hair? Why are they a lighter brown than we are? Some of them even look white. Read it again.
Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people.
Ephraim, he has mixed himself amongst the people.
Ephraim is a cake not turned.
He is a cake not turned. If you get a pancake and don't turn it over, one side is extremely light, one side is extremely dark. So all the 10 tribes have that characteristic, okay? Because they were mixing with the enemies from the time of the Assyrian captivity all the way up till today. Was that it? Come on.
Strangers have devoured his strength.
Strangers have devoured his strength,
And he knoweth them not.
he knoweth it not.
Yet gray hairs are here and there upon him, yet he knoweth not.
Yet he knoweth not. From there, go to Proverbs 15, verse 17. Proverbs 15 and verse 17, okay? Watch
Proverbs
this.
chapter 15, verse 17.
Talk about the American Indians had the first Thanksgiving Day with the white man. Listen good.
Better is a dinner of herbs where love is.
Better is a dinner of herbs, meaning all you got is vegetables, where love is,
Than a stalled ox
than a stalled ox
and hatred therewith.
and hatred therewith. Because when a certain tribe sat down with the white man and they had all plenteous food, there was hate in the heart of the so-called white man. They were planning to overcome them and break the treaties, okay? From there, let's go to Amos chapter 5. Amos chapter 5, verse 21 to 23.
Amos chapter 5, verse 21. I despise your feast
You
days.
hear what God says about your feast days like Thanksgiving? Read it again.
I despise your feast days.
God says he hates your feast days, okay? Your feast days like Thanksgiving. Read.
And I will not smell in your solemn assemblies.
Oh, God is very pleased with our turkey, our stuffing, our cranberries. That's the dumb, unlearned black man and black woman. Read it again.
And I will not smell in your solemn
He
assemblies.
will not smell in your solemn assemblies.
Though you offer me burnt offerings and your meat offerings, I will not accept them.
God says he ain't accepted it. Come on.
Neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat.
Because now what do today? You sit in your churches and go, God bless America. God accept and bless the food which we are about to receive. The turkey, the stuffing, the cranberry sauce, the apple cider, the ham hocks, the pineapples. That's what you do. How do I know? Because I sat in many of your abominable churches on so-called Thanksgiving. Was that it? Down to 23.
Take thou away from me the noise of thy song.
Because right behind the Thanksgiving prayer and dinner, they singing songs. They just a singing. Come on.
Take thou away from me the noise of thy songs, for I will not hear the melody of thy vows.
You hear what God says for you fake Christians that think God accepts your Thanksgiving? Was that it?
But let judgment run down as waters.
Wait. It says, let judgment run down as waters. What does that mean for your Thanksgiving? You talk about judgment. You got all your little white friends that talk about the white man don't know judgment. He don't know justice. Because in order to know judgment, in order to know justice, he must return the land to the so-called American Indians. Because this is their land that was stolen. They gotta bring back all the souls that they murdered. Over 77 million lives they slaughtered. What you Negroes talking about? They didn't go fit the curses. What verse you at?
Verse 24.
Come on.
But
no, I just went down to 23. Isaiah 1 now, verse 14 to 20. We're going to read Isaiah 1, verse 14 to 20. Okay? Let judgment and justice rain down. That's what God says. You Negroes talking about Thanksgiving Day. You better shut up before judgment come on you. And it's about to. Where you at?
Isaiah 1, verse 14.
Come on.
Your new moons and your appointed feast days and your appointed feasts my soul hated.
When you examine history, did the Native Americans honor the new moons? Yes, they did. Okay? Yes, they did. Read it again.
Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hated.
But it said God would hate that. Why? Because what was the American Indians doing on this side? The tribe of Gad. They were mixing the learned understanding of the Bible with heathen practices. Come on.
They are a trouble unto me.
Mm-hmm.
I am weary to bear them.
Come on.
And when you spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you.
Did the American Indians, when they prayed, they raised their hands to the Most High God. And he said, I will hide my eyes from you. You Negroes at home. You Latinos at home. Okay? Do you raise your hands to the Lord? Yes. And he said he will turn his eyes from you too. Read with your thanksgivings.
Yea, when ye make many prayers.
You make your prayers on Thanksgiving. God bless us all. Everyone.
I will not hear.
He said he will not hear. Read.
Your hands are full of blood.
Your hands are full of blood. How about that, Negroes? Because not only, let me go back to something. Because a lot of you, some of you blacks go, oh, the American Indians had some of us in slavery, like the Choctaw tribe, the Chickasaw tribe, 2 of the 5 civilized nations. Yes, that's true. That is true. Read the book, Black Indians by William Lawrence Katz. It tells you that the white man forced, listen good to what I'm saying, forced the 5 civilized nations to enslave the blacks, to keep that division amongst us. But it tells you 3 of them, 3 of the tribes, including the Seminoles, it says when the white man came back, they said, why do you got these blacks as princes and kings amongst you? That ain't what we told you to do. And they took away their women and all that. They said, if you don't do what we say, we're going to take your women, take your kids, and take your land. So you black men, be quiet. You don't know the atrocities done. Okay? You don't know what happened. But you never speak about the Buffalo Soldiers. I see that part. When the white man got them and deceived them and said, oh, we're going to give you 40 acres and a mule. Just help us overcome them damn engines over there. And the so-called unlearned, uneducated Negro, yes, massa, yes, and helped overthrow. And you got songs glorifying Buffalo Soldier. Bob Marley singing those foolish songs about the destruction of the 12 tribes of Israel. That's what the song glorifies. It glorifies Uncle Tom's. Read that part again.
And when you spread forth your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. When you make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood.
That's down to 20 I want to go down to.
Wash you, make you clean.
Wash you, make you clean, meaning repent.
Put away the evil of your doings.
We all must put away the evil of our doings. All of us, all the 12 tribes, and return to the laws, statutes, and commandments of the one true God. Read.
Put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do well. Seek judgment. Relieve the oppressed. Judge the fatherless. Plead for the widow.
Now, from there, let's go to Lamentations 5. Lamentations chapter 5. Okay? We're going to read verse 1 through 8.
Lamentations chapter 5, verse 1.
Listen good.
Remember, O Lord, what has come upon us.
This is what the tribes said, the 10 tribes. And what you also include, I'll say the 12 tribes, because when you read down, it does mention Judah too. Read again.
Remember, O Lord, what has come upon us. Consider and behold our reproach. Our inheritance is turned into strangers.
No, read it properly.
Our inheritance is turned to strangers.
Our inheritance is turned to strangers. What was the inheritance? I'm dealing with the 10 tribes right now. What was their inheritance? It told you in 2nd Ezra 13, we read it at the beginning of the lesson, how 10 of the tribes came on this side of the world where never mankind dwelt. Read it again.
Our inheritance is turned to strangers, our houses to aliens.
And our houses have been turned to aliens. So what does that mean? The white man likes to call the so-called American Indians and all the Indians on this side of the world aliens. Is that correct? That's what they call them. But God calls the white man aliens. Read that again.
Our inheritance is turned to strangers, our houses to aliens.
The white man is the alien according to the Bible. Read.
We are orphans and fatherless.
We are orphans and fatherless because what did the white man do? We read it earlier. They killed all the kings. They killed the princes. They left women and children. That's what they did. Come on.
Our mothers are as widows.
Our mothers are as widows. Read.
We have drunken our water for money.
We had to drink our own water for money. Read.
Our wood is sold unto us.
The wood we got here, our trees, our forest is given to us for money.
Our necks are under persecution.
Our necks are under persecution. Come on.
We labor and have no rest.
We labor and have no rest because when the Spanish white man came, I'm going back now. They forced the Indians to mine for gold and diamonds. And if you didn't bring gold and diamonds back, by the end of the day, your hand was cut off. And you were not allowed to eat. You were not allowed to drink. So you black men, you don't know history. Just be quiet, listen, and learn. Read.
We have given the land to the Egyptians.
We have given the land to the Egyptians. That word just means the captives, the slave masters. Read.
And to the Assyrians, to be satisfied with bread.
To be satisfied with bread. We just going down to 8.
Our fathers have sinned and are not.
Our fathers have sinned and are not because they were killed. Come on.
And we have borne their iniquity.
And the descendants have borne the iniquity of the forefathers. Come on.
Servants have ruled over us.
Uh-oh. The Bible says servants have ruled over us. Yeah, Miss Black Woman. That white man you like to call a hunk. Oh, look at Brad Pitt. He's such a hunk. The Bible says servants have ruled over us. Hold on. Give me Ecclesiasticus 10 and Ecclesiastes 10 verse 7. Because the Bible says servants have ruled over us. Ecclesiastes 10 verse 7.
Ecclesiastes 10 verse 7. I have seen servants upon horses.
Who's speaking here? Solomon is speaking in the spirit. Read it again.
I have seen servants upon horses.
Solomon said, I have seen servants upon horses. What does the horse represent? Power, authority. Read it again.
I have seen servants upon horses.
Who was the servant sitting upon horses? The white man. Read.
And princes walking as servants upon the earth.
And princes walking as servants upon the earth. There's a famous statue with the white man on a horse. You got a so-called American Indian on one side and a Negro on the other side. The Negro got his gun up, saying, what? I'm going to fight for you, master. When you look at the American Indian, the butt of his gun, the nozzle of his gun is pointed down because he refused to fight. The majority of them, let me word it like that, refused to fight. Okay? Come on, where you at? Go back to that.
Lamentations chapter 5, verse 8. Servants have ruled over us.
Servants have ruled over us.
There is none that doth deliver us out of their hand.
There's none that can deliver us out of their hand. The American Indians also had something set up called AIM, the American Indian Movement, which was based upon the Black Panthers. The Mexicans had something called the Brown Berets. The Puerto Ricans had something called the Young Lords. There was none that could deliver. All the tribes had revolutionary groups. They all failed. There's one Savior. That's Jesus the Christ. He's the King. He's the Lord of Lords. He's the Master. Okay? From there, let's go to Nahum, chapter 3 and verse 1. The book of Nahum.
Nahum chapter 3, verse 1. Woe to the bloody city.
The Bible says, woe to the bloody city. What does the word woe mean? Destruction, destruction, destruction. Read it again.
Woe to the bloody city.
What's the bloody city? The United States of America. How did they get this land? Was it through peace? Huh? It was through bloodshed. Read it again.
Woe to the bloody city. It is all full of lies.
It is what?
It is all full of lies.
It is all full of lies. You go to school and you're taught lies. Every time my child come home, I gotta clean out their minds. That's a lie, daughter. Son, that's a lie. Okay? They go, Dad, did the Indians sell America, Manhattan for how much?
$24
worth of worthless beads. I say, hell no.
And they were expert bead makers.
They were expert beads makers, and history says the Indians had gold and diamonds woven in their clothes like we got on today. Gold all in there sold. Why are they that dumb? But that's why it's read that again.
It is all full of lies and robbery.
This land is all full of lies and robbery. Come on.
The prey departed not.
The prey departeth not. Who's the prey? We're the prey. The 12 tribes of Israel. Do we depart? Are we seeking to leave this place? No. You ain't looking for another country. Hold that. Give me that in Hebrews. We seek a country. Hebrews. Bear with me a second. Give me Hebrews 11. It might be chapter 11. It might be 10. Bear with me a second. See, things be popping in my mind. Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 14. Come on.
Hebrews 11, verse 14.
Listen good.
For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country.
For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country, the new Jerusalem upon earth. Do you Negroes talk about that? You seeking a country? No. You singing, God bless America. That's what you're doing. That's what you do. Go back to that when you was at Nahum. Did you finish verse 1?
Verse 1 again. Woe to the bloody city that is full of lies and robbery. The prey departed not. The noise of a whip and the noise of rattling of wheels.
That's in history, okay? What verse you at?
Verse 2.
I just wanted one. Go to Revelation, 2 Chronicles 28. 2 Chronicles. I'm going back now to the foolish Negro that says, we're going to read this quick, that says, the Choctaw and the Chickasaw, oh, they had us as slaves, so they're not Israelites. You dumb. And you know what that proves? You don't even know the Bible. Why do I waste my time talking to you? You don't even know the Bible. 2 Chronicles 28, read verse 8 through 11 quickly, please.
2 Chronicles 28, verse 8.
Let's see if the 10 tribes ever had the kingdom of Judah in slavery. Listen good.
And the children of Israel carried away captive of their brethren 200,000 women, sons, and daughters, and took also away much spoil from them, and brought the spoil to Samaria.
So they took Israel took their brethren captive. Read it again.
And the children of Israel carried away.
Children of Israel are the 10 tribes. Read it again.
And the children of Israel carried away captive of their brethren 200,000 women, sons, and daughters, and took also away much spoil from them, and brought the spoil to Samaria.
To Samaria, that's where Ephraim dwelt. Come on.
But a prophet of the Lord was there, whose name was Oded.
Listen good.
And he went out before the host that came to Samaria.
So Oded stood before Ephraim and all the 10 tribes. He stood in their path. What did he say?
And said to them, Behold, because the Lord God of your fathers was wroth with Judah. Because the Lord God of your fathers was mad with Judah. Come on. He hath delivered them into your hand.
That's why God delivered them into your hand. Read.
And ye have slain them in a rage.
And you have slain Judah in a rage. Come on.
That reacheth up unto heaven.
Because Ephraim and the other 10 tribes raged against us, and they killed many of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Read.
And now ye purpose to keep under the children of Judah and Jerusalem for bondmen.
You want to keep them for bondmen? This is what the prophet is saying to the 10 tribes. You want to make Judah, Benjamin, and Levi bondmen, slaves?
And now ye purpose to keep under the children of Judah and Jerusalem for bondmen and bondwomen unto you. But are there not with you, even with you, sins against the Lord your God?
So now the prophet says, remember, you yourselves have sinned. Let them know that you're guilty just like Judah is. You can be made slaves just like Judah. Read. All we going down to is 11.
Verse 11. Now hear me therefore, and deliver the captives again, which ye have taken captive of your brethren, for the fierce wrath of the Lord is upon you.
So what does this prove? That the kingdom of Israel had the kingdom of Judah in captivity, slaves. Okay, so does that mean that they're not Israelites? That proves one thing: you don't know the Bible. That's what that proves. Because you are quick to write on our comments, how could the Indians be Israelites when some of their tribes made the blacks as slaves? We just read that in the Bible. We just read that in the Bible. I'm going to say it again. We just read that in the Bible. Listen good, okay? From there, let's go to Revelation 7. Revelation 7, we want verse 4 and 5, okay?
Revelation chapter 7, verse 4.
Listen good.
And I heard the number of them which were sealed. And there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel.
So there's going to be 144,000 leaders, men of all the tribes of the children of Israel, sealed with the law and the testimony of who they are and what they must do, okay? How are they going to be sealed? Jump down to verse 4 and 5.
Verse 4. Verse 4. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel.
Verse 5.
Of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000.
Of the tribe of Judah is sealed 12,000. How is Judah going to be sealed with this understanding if you don't know who Judah is? Huh? You busy talking about maybe the Chinese is Judah. You simple as hell. You got to know who Judah is in order for Judah to be sealed with the knowledge and the testimony of who they are and what God requires of them. You got to know who Judah is. Read.
Of the tribe of Judah was sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000.
How is Reuben going to be sealed if you don't know who Reuben is? You talking about we don't know who they are. You hear the truth and you refuse to accept it because your elder wasn't the one that God opened his understanding to. That's called envy and jealousy. We bring to you the understanding of who Reuben is, of who Judah is. No. We don't know who they is. Nobody know who they is. So how they going to be sealed, brother? How they going to be sealed, sister? Come on.
Of the tribe of Gad were sealed 12,000.
Of the tribe of Gad is sealed 12. How is Gad going to be sealed if you don't know who Gad is? If they don't know who they are, how are they going to be sealed with the understanding that they're Gad? Huh? How's that going to happen? How is that going to be fulfilled? Huh? Open your brain, open your mind. Brothers, sisters, this is all said not out of hatred, but it's meant out of love. We must, as a people, come together and a righteous understanding of the Most High, understanding his laws and his truth, okay? We are bringing you the truth, the understanding of who Judah is, who Gad is, who Reuben is, who Benjamin is, who Levi is, who Ephraim and Manasseh, okay, who Zebulun is, Naphtali, Issachar. We've been telling you that for years, but because you have personal hatred against our people, you reject it. But you're so quick to call the Philistines Israelites. Oh, the Mbobo tribe. Yes, the Mbobo. They sold your behind over here, okay? Then some of you go, oh, no. But the white man could come and you're quick to marry the white woman. That's what you do. But the so-called Indians that were there, no. Some of you out in California, you might have got beat up by MS-16. Some of you might have gotten killed by them, robbed by them. So what? Should they now turn around and say, oh, we don't accept the blacks because a black man robbed me? Huh? That's foolishness. We all got to repent of our sins. Every last one of us. Brothers and sisters, I pray you understand. I really pray you do. Okay? We need to keep this program going, brothers and sisters. We can't do it without you. We as a people, get Zephaniah 2:1 for me. I need to show you the scripture before we close. Zephaniah chapter 2, right there, verse 1.
Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 1. Gather yourselves together. Yea, gather yourself together, O nation not desired.
Hear what God says. We must gather ourselves together. Okay? We got to gather ourselves together in the understanding of what the Most High God says. Put away our differences, put away our hatred, our envy, our jealousy. Come together. Bring forth your donations, your offerings to help us keep the program going, brothers and sisters. For more information, visit our website at www.israelunite.org, or on YouTube, you can visit us at www.youtube.com/Nathaniel7. And with that, we give all praise to the Most High and His Son Christ, and we say Shalom.
Shalom, Israel.
The United States Postal Service.
No ringing phones, just time to focus. Enjoy the silence with Inspira.
Hi, this is Matt Baker. Today I'm going to discuss the real origin of the 12 tribes of Israel. And by real, I mean the historical origin, according to secular academia, as opposed to the origin that's described in the Bible. Because, according to a literal reading of the Bible, the origin is simple. Abraham had Isaac, Isaac had Jacob, and then Jacob had 12 sons, whose descendants went on to become the 12 tribes of Israel. However, if you're familiar with this channel, you'll know that I, like most historians, view the characters described in Genesis and Exodus as being more mythological or legendary than historical. So the question comes up, if the Jacob described in the Bible wasn't a real person, and if he didn't really have 12 children, then where did the 12 tribes come from? Well, that's exactly what we'll be exploring today. But first, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Speakly. Have you ever wanted to learn German, or perhaps French, Italian, Spanish, or Russian? Or maybe you want to improve your English? Well, Speakly can help. Speakly was created after its founders spent 6 years studying thousands of language learners. The result was an app that lets you learn languages 5 times faster than usual. With just 30 minutes of practice per day, you'll be able to get along well in real-life situations within just a few months. And the great thing about Speakly is that it lets you customize your learning. You can choose what time of day you want to learn, whether you want to focus more on speaking or writing, and how exactly you want to study new vocabulary words. It even recommends music for you to listen to in your target language. So if you're interested in learning a new language, you can try out Speakly now. Use the link in the description or pinned comment to get a free 7-day trial followed by 60% off if you choose to get the annual subscription. All right, back to the 12 tribes of Israel. Let me start by making 2 important points about the Bible that unfortunately a lot of people don't seem to know or understand. The first is that the Bible began to be written in the Iron Age, not the Bronze Age. This is something that not only do biblical literalists get wrong, but many non-religious people as well. This is because a famous atheist once joked that the Bible was written by a bunch of Bronze Age goat herders. Unfortunately, the phrase stuck, and it ended up becoming a meme. But here's the thing. The Bible wasn't written by Bronze Age goat herders. It was written by Iron Age city dwellers. Now, you might be thinking, Bronze Age, Iron Age, what's the difference? They're both a really long time ago. Well, if you want to understand anything at all about the history of the ancient Near East, and in particular how the Bible fits into it, the difference between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age is actually quite important. Let me explain by briefly comparing the biblical account of things with what really happened. The Bible's story begins approximately 4000 BCE with Adam and Eve. We then get Noah and the flood around 2500, the 3 patriarchs around 2000, and the Exodus around 1450, although some date it later to around 1250. This is then followed by King David around 1000 and the divided monarchy starting around 900. Okay, let's now compare that to what really happened. The secular account dates the Earth to around 4.5 billion years ago. and the emergence of Homo sapiens to around 200,000 years ago. However, when it comes to history, we usually say that that began around the year 3300 BCE, because that's when the very first written records were made. 3300 also marks the beginning of the Bronze Age, which is when we get the earliest civilizations in places like Egypt and Mesopotamia. Over the next 2,000 years, these civilizations grew larger, more advanced, and increasingly interconnected, so that by the year 1250 BCE, the ancient Near East looked something like this. Of major note is the fact that Canaan was actually controlled by Egypt at this point. So why would the Israelites escape Egypt only to run into Egyptians again in Canaan? Around 1200 BCE, something very important happened, something that is not mentioned in the Bible. It's called the Bronze Age collapse, and it was probably far more earth-shattering than the fall of Rome. Most likely, a series of large-scale natural disasters led to drought, and then migrations and war, causing every major civilization in the Near East, including the Egyptians and the Mycenaean Greeks, to suddenly decline. In Canaan, a group simply called the Sea Peoples started to attack the coast, destroying most of the big cities. For the people living at the time, it would have felt like an apocalypse, and from that point forward, people would have thought about history in terms of the before times and the after times. And this is why the Bronze Age collapse and the Iron Age that followed it are so important for understanding the Bible. Basically, the Bronze Age collapse explains the origin of the Israelites. I'll be talking about each individual tribe a bit later, but for now, we can say that the origin of the Israelites as a whole is directly connected to this ancient apocalyptic event. Historians and archaeologists are still working out the details, but what happened is something like this. The Sea Peoples wiped out the coastal Canaanites, but the inland Canaanites who lived in the hill country managed to survive. There, they were likely joined by other groups, such as the Habaru, who were previously seen as being rebels or outlaws, and maybe even by former slaves, who either escaped from Egypt itself or from Egyptian-controlled cities in Canaan. Another group who may have wound up in Canaan at this point is the Shasu, who originally came from the area that the Bible calls Midian. Because of this inscription, they are thought by some to have been the original worshippers of the god YHWH. Anyhow, once all these people ended up in the hill country, what seems to have happened is that this ragtag group of tribes decided to join together and form a confederacy called Israel. The name Israel was likely used by at least one of the groups prior to the Bronze Age collapse, as evidenced by the Merneptah stele, but afterwards it referred to the entire confederacy, a confederacy that eventually evolved into a kingdom, probably around 900 BCE, which is when the Bible and the archaeological record start to line up quite nicely. Which is why the biblical story cannot be simply accepted or rejected as a whole, which is a mistake that both literalists as well as some atheists make. On one hand, the literalists assume that the entire Bible is real history, and on the other hand, some atheists assume that the entire Bible is fairy tales. But the truth is that it's actually a bit of both, which is why knowing the difference between the Bronze Age parts and the Iron Age parts is so important. To drive this point home, let me show you something that I showed in a previous video. Here is my biblical family tree chart, the one that we sell over at usefulcharts.com. This part corresponds to the Bronze Age, and this part to the Iron Age. Let me now put a check mark over every character from the Hebrew Bible for whom we have evidence for in the archaeological record. What do you notice? They're all from the Iron Age, because that's when the earliest authors of the Bible were living. Obviously, they were fairly well acquainted with their own time period, but when it came to the before times, meaning before the Bronze Age collapse, they could only rely on myth and legend. Now, of course, there are some traces of real history in those myths and legends, such as a memory of some sort of flood, a memory of life as nomadic shepherds, a memory of Egyptian oppression, and a memory that their God was originally connected to the land of Midian. But the bottom line is that these distant memories from earlier times were turned into literature meant to teach, not a history book meant to record literal events. Okay, it's now time for my second point, and that is that the Bible was written by the Judahites, not by the Israelites. To explain, let's once again compare the biblical story with what actually happened. According to the Bible, Kings David and Solomon, both from the tribe of Judah, reigned over a unified Israelite kingdom consisting of 12 tribes. Then, only after Solomon's death, was the land split into two separate kingdoms: Israel in the north, consisting of 10 tribes, and Judah in the south, consisting of 2 tribes. Israel lasted until 722 BCE, when it was destroyed by Assyria, and Judah until 586, when it was destroyed by Babylon. According to the biblical account, most of the surviving Israelites were carried off, never to be seen again, whereas the surviving Judahites, who were also carried off, were able to return. This is where the idea of the lost 10 tribes comes from, which I'll come back to later. It's also the reason why, from this point forward, the people in the Bible are called Jews, because they were mostly from the tribe of Judah. Okay, let's now look at what really happened. Although there is still some debate about this, many scholars now lean toward the position that a unified Israelite kingdom under David and Solomon never actually existed. This is because the archaeological record indicates that prior to 900 BCE, the population in the region was much too small and mostly rural. However, after 900, we get lots of evidence for a large wealthy kingdom called Israel, centered at Samaria and ruled by kings such as Omri, Ahab, and Jehu. We also get evidence for a kingdom centered at Jerusalem, associated with a person named David, but it's relatively quite small. Known as the Kingdom of Judah, it doesn't really flourish until after the Kingdom of Israel is destroyed. When that happens, Jerusalem grows exponentially, presumably because many of the Israelites from the north survived by moving south to join Judah. Now, in a previous video, I talked about the documentary hypothesis, which posits that the first 5 books of the Bible were written not by Moses, but by 4 distinct authors, or groups of authors. According to the original version of the hypothesis, J and E were both written before 722 BCE, and D and P were written after. In fact, E was assumed to have been written by someone living in the northern kingdom of Israel. If this is true, at least part of the Bible was written by the Israelites. But this is no longer the view found in the most recent scholarship. The leading hypothesis nowadays is that everything was written, or at least heavily edited, after 722 BCE, and therefore it was all done by scribes from the southern kingdom of Judah. In fact, the idea of 4 distinct layers has pretty much been abandoned as well. The D part still stands out. We know that it was made by the same group of scribes that wrote Joshua through Kings, although this is now thought to have occurred in several stages, the first being completed before the captivity and the rest being completed during or after the captivity. But when it comes to Genesis through Numbers, the only layer that really stands out as being unique is P, which almost certainly was created after the captivity by Second Temple priests, which is why it's called P. J and E, however, have mostly been abandoned, or at least combined as JE. But even this is a bit misleading because it appears that the JE parts contain lots of different layers and edits, something I'll come back to later. What a lot of scholars are now suggesting is that the Israelites and Judahites originally had 2 or maybe even 3 or more different origin stories. The 2 main ones seem to be the one involving Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in Genesis, and the one involving Moses in Exodus. In a previous video, I suggested that the 3 patriarchs story may have come from Judah and the Moses story from Israel, but keep in mind that this is still highly speculative. I've seen other scholars suggest that both origin stories came from Israel, and others who suggest that maybe the 3 patriarch story can be broken down further into independent traditions. and that maybe only Abraham and Isaac were from Judah, and Jacob was from Israel. But regardless of how it all breaks down, what a lot of scholars are now concluding is that it was P who stitched everything together for the very first time. And remember, P was writing after the captivity. So the conclusion is that the entire Torah, or Pentateuch, as well as Judges through Kings, was done by southern Judahites. In fact, these 9 books, 11 in the Old Testament, were probably at some point considered to be a single work, one that explained the entire history of the Jewish people, all the way from Adam and Eve to the Babylonian captivity. Now, within this grand narrative, there might be a few fragments here and there that can be traced back to the Northern Israelites. But even in these cases, they've been heavily edited and carefully placed alongside supplementary material in a way that clearly shows a Judahite spin. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, well, what does it matter? Weren't the Judahites just a subset of the Israelites? Well, that used to be the thinking, even in secular circles. But nowadays, a lot of scholars are leaning toward a new idea. But before I introduce it, let me point out that I've put a big list of sources in the description. So if you're wondering who I'm referring to whenever I say scholars, just take a look there. One book in particular that I'd like to highlight is this recent one, Why the Bible Began by Jacob L. Wright. It provides more detail on just about everything that I'm covering in this video. So here's the idea. Judah was most likely not a part of the original Israelite Confederacy. In fact, it likely had no association with Israel at all until after the fall of the Northern Kingdom. To help you understand what this means, let me give you an analogy. I happen to live in Canada, which is right next door to the United States. Of these two countries, the US is by far the more dominant one, with a much larger population and a much larger impact on global culture. Both countries are a part of North America, but only people in the US call themselves Americans. In Canada, we would never call ourselves American. We are Canadians. Okay, but let's now imagine the following scenario. There is some sort of global catastrophe or war that leaves America in ruins, but Canada intact. At this point, Canada is flooded with American refugees. And after about 100 years, the words Canadian and American become synonymous. In fact, after another 100 years or so, Canadian history books start saying that Canada had actually started out as one of the 51 states of America. Now, of course, the truth of the matter is that America has never had 51 states. We all know that it currently has only 50. Well, what if there never actually were 12 tribes of Israel? What if the whole thing was made up later in order to insert Judah into Israel's history? Well, that's the idea that I'm now going to explore. And take note that for this part, I'll be relying heavily on the work of Andrew Tobolowsky. Again, you can find the complete list of sources in the description. Let me start by going over the names and locations of the 12 tribes. Remember, according to the Bible, the 12 tribes descended from the 12 sons of Jacob. Jacob's first 4 sons were Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, all born to Jacob's first wife, Leah. In terms of geography, all 4 of these tribes ended up living in the south, although take note that the tribe of Levi was not actually allotted any land, because they were instead tasked with religious duties. Although they were originally spread out throughout the land, eventually most ended up in Jerusalem, where the temple was located. The next 4 children were Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. These children were not born to either one of Jacob's wives, but rather to his wives' servants, Bilhah and Zilpah. Note that these 4 tribes all inherited land on the periphery. Next came Issachar and Zebulun, again from Leah. They were given land here. Finally, we get Joseph and Benjamin, the 2 children of Rachel, Jacob's favorite wife. Their land corresponds to the core regions of Israel, although take note that the descendants of Joseph eventually get split into 2 tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh. This means that there were actually 13 tribes, not 12. This is usually resolved by leaving out Levi or by combining Ephraim and Manasseh into Joseph. Okay, now that you're familiar with who's who, let me show you why some scholars think that the whole 12 tribe concept was a late Judahite invention. As I mentioned earlier, the first 9 books in the Hebrew Bible, or 11 in the Old Testament if you remove Ruth, were likely originally meant to be a single work. It was created sometime during the Second Temple period by stitching together a bunch of older texts and inserting new material in between. And here's what's interesting. In this entire grand narrative, the 12 tribes are listed by name only 18 times. 10 of these are in sections that are pretty much universally attributed to P, meaning that they were added very late. An additional 2 are usually attributed to an even later redactor, sometimes called R. Now, the original documentary hypothesis only applied to the Pentateuch, and thus Joshua through Kings is usually just labeled as D due to their association with Deuteronomy. But nowadays it's thought that there might be some P sections in these books as well. These 2 are strong candidates for that, which leaves us with just 4 references to the 12 tribes that might predate the Second Temple period. Let's now look at them one by one, starting with a list found in Judges 5. This chapter is known as the Song of Deborah, and it stands out from the material before and after it, both in terms of style and language. It appears to be a very old hymn that the Deuteronomists inserted into the narrative. In fact, some scholars believe that this chapter might be the oldest bit of text in the entire Bible, and one of the very few that was written in the north before 722 BCE, which means that this is quite likely the oldest list we have of the Israelite tribes. So let's take a look. First off, you need to know that this hymn is about a famous battle, and it talks about the tribes who participated and the tribes who did not. So the participating tribes are listed as Ephraim, Benjamin, Machir, Zebulun, Issachar, and Naphtali, whereas the non-participating tribes are listed as Reuben, Gilead, Dan, and Asher. So first of all, that's only 10 tribes, not 12. Second, there are 2 unfamiliar names, Machir and Gilead. Elsewhere in the Bible, Machir is said to have been the son of Manasseh. So the assumption is that the tribe of Machir is probably Manasseh. Likewise, Gilead is where the tribe of Gad was located. So again, the assumption is that Gilead is probably Gad. So who's missing then? Interestingly, it's Judah, Simeon, and Levi, the 3 tribes who made up the southern kingdom of Judah. However, in the flow of the narrative, the north and the south had not yet been divided. So why were these 3 tribes not mentioned? It can't simply be because they didn't participate in the battle, because the hymn specifically goes out of its way to reprimand those who didn't. So the conclusion is that maybe in the original Confederacy, there were only ever 10 tribes of Israel, not 12. The next oldest tribal list is found in Deuteronomy chapter 33. It's known as the Blessing of Moses because it contains separate blessings given by Moses for each tribe. This time, Judah and Levi are mentioned, but again, not Simeon. However, when you look at the original Hebrew, the first 2 blessings for Reuben and Judah stand out as being quite different, which indicates that this part may have been inserted at a later date. In addition to this, Ephraim and Manasseh are combined into a single blessing, as are Zebulun and Issachar. And therefore, the conclusion is that the original poem likely had only 8 blessings. When you put this next to the list in Judges 5, what it shows is that even in the north, the total number of tribes as well as their names likely changed over time. For example, it appears that Reuben may have dwindled and eventually disappeared. The blessing for Reuben, given in verse 5, seems to hint at this because it says, "Let Reuben live and not die, nor his people be few." Also, it appears that Levi may have been added later. Interestingly, the name Levi actually means joined, and according to Richard Friedman's book, The Exodus, the tribe of Levi may have been the only tribe to have experienced some sort of literal exodus from Egypt. One of his main arguments is the fact that all of the personal names for individual Levites found in the Bible are names that have Egyptian origins, whereas most of the other names have Canaanite origins. Others have suggested that maybe the Levites had been priests in Egypt, perhaps even the leading priests under Akhenaten. So maybe it was this new tribe that introduced the idea of monotheism to the Israelites. Let's now look at Genesis chapter 49, which also contains a blessing for each tribe, this time given by Jacob. But once again, the text appears to have an original core that was then added to at a later date. All 12 tribes are mentioned, but the first 4 blessings stand out because they're written in the first person, whereas the other 8 are written in the third person. So yet again, it looks like the Judahites have inserted themselves into a much older text, making it look like they were there all along, which is why there ends up being some confusion over which son of Jacob was his heir. On one hand, it would appear that Joseph was his heir because he was Jacob's favorite son and was given a double inheritance. However, on the other hand, it also appears that Judah was his heir because in verse 10 it says, "The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet," which is a foreshadowing of the ruling house of David. The argument is that Reuben, the firstborn, was disqualified because he slept with his father's concubine, Bilhah, and that the next 2 sons, Simeon and Levi, were also disqualified because they were too violent, meaning that Judah, the 4th-born son, is the heir. Let's now jump to Genesis 29 to 35, which is where the birth order is explained. Like I said earlier, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah were all born to Leah, Jacob's first, but not his favorite, wife. Now, if, as I've been suggesting, Judah was not an original member of the Israelite Confederacy, but was rather inserted into the story later, why then would they decide to place their tribe 4th in the birth order and not 1st? Especially if they wanted to promote the idea that their tribe was the most important. This is, in fact, what they did elsewhere in both Numbers and Joshua. Well, as we've already seen, the tribe of Reuben was most likely extinct by the time that Judah rose to prominence. So they weren't any sort of threat. Some have even suggested that Reuben might have been the Shasu. So maybe they were given the ceremonial top spot because they were the first to worship YHWH. When it comes to Simeon, although they were once seen as being a separate southern tribe, by the time this was written, Simeon had been fully integrated into Judah, so they too were not a threat. The Levites, of course, were religious leaders, not political leaders, so they weren't a threat either.
Media.
Therefore,
I'm Jeff Mayweather. Motherfucker.
Hey, y'all watching Ross Media, ROSS, okay? This is Debo from Hit Movie Friday, and I still got the bicycle. Now get out of my face. We about to fade to black.